Hello, and welcome to the Dads of Adventure podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the reopening of the Walt Disney World resort. Right now, it's two parks, Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom. Just had an opportunity to go to the Passholder Previews yesterday for Animal Kingdom, so just wanted to share some information on that as we speak here, and as you're probably potentially listening to this podcast as it's being published. The Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom are opening up for you know for non pass holder guests as well. So just share some information and we'll go from there. But get started. Again, if you're listening to this podcast, you can also find it in video format, and I will share some probably pictures and videos and things like that. On our YouTube channel as well, which is DreamsMagicAdventure YouTube channel. So subscribe there, check that out as we go, and get more information on the parks. I'll probably be posting more videos as well, on different areas, different parks that are getting started with the reopening process, and that way you can have all the information you need. And if you are watching on YouTube, you can also listen to this in podcast format on your favorite podcast app. We just joined iHeartRadio and Spotify as well, so you can listen there as well as most other podcast apps that feed from Apple Podcasts. And you can also find us at Dads of Adventure on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Especially important on Instagram. We just, for this particular episode, because we did a whole day of, that's where I posted everything from our day. So check that out. Videos, pictures. If you check out, it might, if the story is gone, you can check out the highlights. So I did a whole highlight section. That was our day at Animal Kingdom with some of the information about the reopening procedures and such. And beyond that, just please check us out in all those areas, and we will get started with the show. So again, we had a pass holder preview that was available to us as annual pass holders for Walt Disney World, and it was a sign up, limited capacity type thing. So as I'm talking about these things, I'm going to be talking a little bit about, the crowds and, things like that. So things may be a little bit different because some of the things I've heard, I think what the projection is that they will be about potentially double the capacity in the parks than what the pass holder previews was. I don't know. And I'm sure they'll kind of, as they get better at what they're doing and as they see how people are moving, they will increase that. So, some of the comments about, just the number of people and things like that kind of, up that a little bit, because I'm sure they'll be trying to get capacity up, as soon as it's, safe to do so. But, so we'll start. So we headed into the parks. We drove to the parks, and first thing, of course, is heading into the parking area. We're excited to see it. We haven't been there for a while, and so coming in there, one of the tips that I mentioned in some of the videos on the membership site are just making sure that you are prepared for things that are coming. So I remembered to get out the annual pass card and also my license, because they do require that. But I just kind of showed it to them. I'm not sure like how strict they're going to be on parking. I'm sure they're going to be charging parking. Pass holders do get parking privileges there, so just have that ready if you're a pass holder. I'm not sure if they're doing it, but it's always good to have your license out and your your annual pass or a Magic Band ready to go. Even like get that prepared before you start driving if you're driving there. So that way you're not fumbling in your pockets and things like that to get a wallet or whatnot to pull that information out. So when we got into the parking lot, it was great to be just heading in there and circling the Animal Kingdom parking lot. One thing that I will note is there were no trams, so keep that in mind. There are no trams running right now. That may change soon, but as far as when we're recording this episode, our experience, there were no trams running for that first part. They were parking every other row, so you had space in between you to get out and get your stuff out. Now they were still parking like behind you, so what they would do is they would park every other row in a specific row, then they would park behind you. So if you, especially for the stroller dads out there, you still need to go ahead and get to your, if you have your stroller in the back hatch, kind of like I do, you still need to get that stroller out if you're the front car, because the back car will be coming around probably in about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how quickly they're parking people. So I had mine out, ready to go, put it in the front of my car, so that way I didn't have to worry about it. So that's a tip that I always give. So I pulled that up, and I thought maybe they were keeping every row, but what I realized was that they were parking. They would eventually come back and fill that in. So basically, they're giving you the opportunity, plenty of time to get out of your car before somebody else comes in, but then they are filling in the rows after that. So be aware that there may be somebody near you after you park, but you should have plenty of time to get out and not encounter too many people, and get your mask on, all that stuff before you have to head into the park. So we were there. We were heading in. It was actually a rainy day that morning, so we were prepared with our stroller cover. So we put that on so the inside of the stroller and our boys didn't get soaked, and we just headed on in. And we were just excited to be there, so that really didn't matter too much. And it actually cooled things off quite a bit. So, I think it was, in the upper 80s to 90 before the rain, and then the rain came. And, sometimes it may not cool things down, but this time it did. It cooled it down to like in the mid 70s to start the day. So that was pretty awesome. You can't ask for better weather than that. And so we headed over. Animal Kingdom has had recent changes to it in terms of the gate area. So there's a left turn instead of just going straight where you would normally go into the security checkpoints. And as you're coming in with some of the procedures, as you're coming in with some of the procedures, they'll outline those. They have plenty of signs and everything that will outline those, so you kind of know ahead of time what to expect. A lot of it's like legal stuff. If you come in, you accept these legal terms, etc. So, what they have to do in order to meet compliance for the parks and everything. So the first thing, the first thing you'll encounter is the temperature check, and that temperature check is they had employees from one of the health systems, local health systems there. I assume they had that the shirts on and everything. So it does give you a sense that there are medical staff that are checking people. I don't know if that's for perception or if that's a requirement or what, but But they were doing temperature checks. It's just a simple, simple scan on your forehead. So, and it's not like super involved. So, they can do it pretty quickly. It looked like, our boys didn't have any issues with it. So that's good. They seemed like they picked a simple method for that. And then heading forward, these are changes that they made during the procedures, but touchless security checks for the most part. So I'll get into that. So it's a new like scanner that you just like walk through, and when you walk through the scanner, it actually scans your bags too. And so what happened with us was, you have your normal procedure of like, you put the stroller off to the side. They'll check the stroller, and and then like one person will go through the scanner, and then the other person will go through the scanner while the other person waits with the stroller. So I got selected for one of the additional bag screenings, but the other ones didn't. So like we had 2 backpacks and stroller, and like popcorn buckets, things like that. So there weren't. So it's pretty well touch free. The except for the one bag, and we had like a camera lens in that bag. So if you have like an SLR camera, that could trigger it for that extra screening. So the extra screening process, I was kind of impressed with it actually. They went off to the side, you take your stuff out and put it in a bin. Didn't get like full information on whether they were like sanitizing those in between then. So there was somebody that had to go through and like look at some of the things in my bag, but they were very, very quick about that. They didn't like invade my bag or anything like that, and they asked me to just take out the things and put them in it was like an airport bin, directly. And they had little monitors there so they could see like which people had kind of set off the extra screening. So I don't think it was at random for sure. And everybody was really pleasant and kind and welcoming. Everybody, I think they were excited to have people back too. So definitely seemed that way. Everybody was saying like welcome. Since it was a Passholder Preview day, they were saying like welcome home and welcome back. So I don't know if it'll be a little bit different other days, but there's just a lot of people. They were there to ensure the success of getting everything reopened. So it was a really pleasant procedure. And then like for Animal Kingdom, it opens out into this more vast area now where all the security checkpoints used to be that kind of looked a little weird. And I didn't realize how weird they kind of looked until they took them away. But security looks a lot better now. Then you go into this nice area, nice open area before you head to the gates. And the gate procedure was a little bit different. And they had like little markings, for the social distancing on the ground. So you gotta, social distance that way. Same thing for security. I forgot to mention that, but they had that information there as well. And so there was like no wait. When we went in, it might be a little bit different as the parks get to be reopened and more people are coming. For park reopening, you still have to have a reservation. So for Passholder Previews, we had to pick our reservation, but that was a little bit different situation. But when the parks are reopened today, you can't just show up at the park. You do have to make a reservation through the Disney Experience app. I know I'm not sure what exactly is available at this point, but you do have to make reservations, whether you're a pass holder or a ticket holder or whatnot. They have recently reopened some of the sales for 2020. So you can definitely check on the website. If you have a travel agent, definitely recommend a travel agent. Even and the to kind of help guide you through that. So we went to the gate. The gate procedure again was a little bit different. They had hand scanners instead of sticking your magic band up to the Mickey, but they had hand scanners that they were using on the magic bands, which was a little bit easier, I thought, because sometimes it's a little tricky to. You don't have to do the fingerprint scan right now. Maybe they'll bring that back when there's at a certain point. I don't know, but the hand scanners work great. It was great for my boys too, because normally we take them in the stroller so that we're not, that we're being as efficient as possible in getting through that gate, and the cast member being able to come to them and scan their bands instead of them getting upset where they can't reach the or taking more time because they can't reach the the Mickey post to scan it themselves, or having to take their magic bands off, or us having to have extra magic bands with their information and scan them in that way. That was all avoided by this process. So I kind of hope they keep it that way. We'll see if it's efficient in terms of getting people in. I know, just as they are discontinuing like free magic bands here later this year into the first part of next year, and then I think they're working on the technology that will be next for that. So that but for right now that was pretty easy to get in the park. Getting in the park, it was just a great feeling to be back in the parks again. We we're just glad to be there. So we took a moment to to be like, okay, yay, we're here, we made it. I forgot to mention, but like before we even left our cars, we put on our masks to head there, and the masks worked out pretty well. We had our own masks. Coming into the park, it wasn't too bad. Now did get a little bit hotter later in the day, so then it was a little more. But I think what you've got to do throughout the day is just relax and take a break, and not go 100 miles an hour. You've got to scale back. I mean, we didn't scale back tons, but we did like take more time when we ate lunch and things like that. So just in general for the day, we did take a little bit more breaks. We did rest when we needed to, things like that. So we'll talk a little bit more about some of the ways that you can rest as we go through this, but just wanted to kind of mention that in terms of starting the day and getting to the day. So since this was a Passholder preview, and I think they were probably at lower attendance, the parks, you could get a straight shot of the Tree of Life without any people in it, which is nearly impossible. Even not being up on the hill, like you could be down by the Tree of Life. There just weren't that many people in the area. And we got there. We didn't get there right at park opening either. We got there. I think the park opened at 8, and we got there around like 9:30, probably in that area by 9:45, 10 o'clock. So it was still pretty open. One of the first things we did was go to one of the shops and get Disney masks, because that was something that I kind of promised the boys. We had kind of pre-talked to them about how you'll need to wear your mask. If you want to go to Disney World, you've got to wear your mask. We may have said something like, that if you don't wear your mask, you might get kicked out by a stormtrooper. Which, they're pretty smart. So they're like, wait a minute, why would stormtroopers be in Animal Kingdom? But they went along with it anyway, and they were fine throughout the day. But one of the things we had promised them was that they were going to get these Disney masks. So we went in the shop, and the way they had it set up is like there's an entry and an exit point, kind of like many of the places that are set up to be open right now. And so when you went in the entry point, there was just warnings and like asking you to social distance, cast members reminding you of that. So they're kind of like looking, I didn't hear anybody like correcting anybody or anything like that at the time, but you really got to kind of, self-police that, in terms of the distancing. I went in there with like a double stroller. I was fine, but, I did have to make sure I was navigating and being respectful of other people and their distance and stuff like that. When for the masks, they did have like a special area. So like you went in this particular shop, you went out and came back in, and there was an area to just look at the masks, which is pretty smart on their part, because they realize that people are probably going to be standing there to figure that out for a little bit, and so they have come up with this way not to make it a crowd gathered there next to the display of masks. And we'll see how that works out, when they get more people in there. But so the Disney masks, a couple things about them. So they had a whole display of them. There was everything from, like Forky and, just general like Mickey. There were like face versions. There was cute, like Pixar characters and, Stitch and Yoda. I can't remember if it was Yoda or Baby Yoda, which I'm just calling it what everybody else is calling it, but I know it's not necessarily Yoda. But so they had those. They had a whole wall of them. Some of them were hard, like Pooh was hard to determine between, like whether that was Pooh or Pluto, because I know they have some Pluto ones out there. It did seem like they didn't have a few of them, like the Mickey face ones that like look like Mickey's face, and Goofy were not available. So I think they had a run on those, and they seem to have they mentioned, that they were running out of some of the adult sizes too, as they came in. So the masks were at the time were $6 each, or you could get 4 for $20. So we got the 4 for $20. What I will mention is that the masks are a little bit small. So we got medium for our 5-year-old and 6-year-old boys. So that, if that gives you any indication, the large one that I got was too small for me. Like I could wear it, but it was pretty close to my face. They did seem to be higher quality. I mean, I'm not an expert in masks, so don't judge me if I'm wrong in that. But in terms of the quality of them, the ear loops are seem pretty comfortable. But one of my sons, who like his nose did not seem to. They don't have like a metal nose piece, so it did slip down quite a bit during times. We kept having to tell him to pull that back up. So that may be a consideration for your kids. My other son had no problem with it. His was on like the whole time. But that did slide down for our other son. So we haven't figured out the solution for that yet, but just to let you know. So we did that. Just other things in the shops. There are, marks on the floor, and they have like the queue set up so that you're not, right next to somebody. And then when you get up there, they have you stand in like a certain spot. So like if you ever been to like TJ Maxx, where they have like the 1 and the 2 and the 3 spot, they'll call you up and then you stand on your spot, and they try to make sure that you stick in that area so that you're socially distanced from the other people at the other registers. There's plexiglass on the in between you and the cast member, and there's lots of signs that promote contactless purchases. So if you have like PayWave or something like that on your card. I had that, so that was great. So I didn't have to, insert my card in the machine or scan it. PayWave worked pretty well. I had to wait for a little bit, so be patient with it. I had like held it there versus like waving it over that. I'm new to that technology anyway, but so that worked out pretty well. One key note on the masks and shops, especially for pass holders, is there were no discounts. I think any discounts on masks. So normally, pass holders will get a little bit of a discount at on merchandise, but there were no discounts whatsoever that I could tell. At least no pass holder discounts on masks. So that was something distinct that they mentioned. So keep that in mind. So that way you can be prepared for it and not get frustrated with it. Then from there, actually before that, but doesn't really matter the order. Wilderness Explorers was still available, so I will mention that. That was nice that was still available. So the way that they did it is they had like a mark on the ground, and you stood behind that mark, put your stroller behind that mark, whatever, and they would do their talk about the Wilderness Explorers and and then what they would they had masks. All the staff, all the cast members had masks on. Some had face shields too, depending on what their role was and how close they would get to. I assume that is based on how close they may potentially get with guests, and where some circumstances are they're standing there at a line or whatever. Seemed like that was the group that had more like a face mask on in addition to a mask. So it wasn't just the face, wasn't just a face shield, but all anybody with a face shield also had a mask on. So I wanted to mention that. And so they would do talk about Wilderness Explorer, and then if you aren't familiar with it, it's a great program that's like throughout the park. You can collect badges as a Wilderness Explorer. They give you a little booklet, and the book is really nice. Like it's got like some graph paper. I love like drawing on graph paper, and that's how I organize my thoughts best. So there's like 4 graph paper, pages in the back that are just blank to draw on. But each page has information on that a particular area of the park, and there's little stations all over the park, and you can go visit those. So it's great for if you have a little one that is not quite at the height requirement and one that is, and you're switching back and forth. We did that quite a bit, and I have no judgment on this. If you, as an adult, because we did this too, want to go on an attraction and your kids don't, and you need the other parent to keep them occupied, great way to do it. They're all over the place. There's tons of them. Even with less people in the park, we couldn't do them all, and they wanted to do them. So that gives you an idea. We probably did about half of them or so, which is a lot more than what we would normally do. Normally we do like a few. But anyway, so once they do their talk and tell you about it, then they step back, or they put the stickers on like a clipboard. I assume they're probably sanitizing and stuff a little bit throughout the day, and they'll put like the amount of stickers, put it on the board, and then they'll step back so that they're socially distanced from you, and you come up and get the stickers. Or I came up and got the stickers for my boys and peeled those off and then gave them to them, and we went on our way. So that was great. The first thing we did was we went into the Dinoland USA to go to Dinosaur. So on the way, we stopped at the restrooms right before Dinoland USA, and I can't remember if I've ever been in those, but I highly recommend those. As far as like social distancing in the restrooms, there's not like any like floor markings or anything like that, so you've got to kind of police yourself. But of course, they have contactless flushing toilets. They have contactless sinks and automatic sinks. They did have the soap was still manual. If you wanted paper towels, they were still manual. The hand dryers, they have a few different types of hand dryers throughout the parks. They have like the Dyson ones that you stick your hands in. So I kind of didn't let my kids do that because it can be touchless, but it's really hard not to touch the edges there. So I was using like my elbow to get paper towels, and I just make sure I wash my hands after I was getting the soap for them, and making sure I got wash my hands thoroughly after I touched anything that was in the restrooms there. So some contactless things, but you're gonna have to adjust to some contact things. One of the things just throughout the parks that they were doing to kind of decrease contact, for the trash cans, they had the trash can lids partially open, so you didn't actually have to touch the trash can lids to put trash in them. So that was pretty cool. I thought that was kind of a neat point that they thought of that, and just made that a little bit easier. So anyway, on to Dinosaur. Oh, the other reason I was going to mention that bathroom is that's like a big bathroom, so it's a good place to, if you need to socially distance, you can. I didn't realize how big that bathroom was. Nice and cool, air conditioning, nice and clean, fresh look to it. So, highly recommend that bathroom right before Dinoland USA entrance. So we went to Dinosaur, was our first ride. We went in there, and so there were a couple things in terms of kind of how they were doing social distancing. They had social distance marks in the line, so like your party would wait on the particular line, and then your next party, and so forth. And you could stop at. There weren't a lot of people there today, so like you could stop in the room and listen to the different information, but you didn't have to. When you got to certain points in the line, there were like plexiglass shields up, and this was mainly at like points where like lines, the front of the line would cross with the other. They had like a plexiglass shield there, and it said "Do not touch" on it as well. So that was, good. An extra step they were taking. When we actually got on the vehicle, so like for Dinosaur, they weren't like, there were people that were on the ride before us. So, that's something to keep in mind in terms of, just, again, we, kind of prefaced everything with our boys of like, don't touch your face, and just kept reiterating that throughout the day. And they did pretty good with it. But you kept your mask on during the ride. There were extra measures there. So like in between the rows on the Time Rover, you had plexiglass shields that were up. So they did this on a couple different rides. I'll talk about some of the other ways they did this, but they really kind of, for that, it wasn't like I didn't even notice it until we were partway through the ride. So it was something that blended in with the vehicle. It wasn't like obvious that was there. It's like it could have been a windshield, just for every row. But it was a change that they had made for that. So other ride experience, great. We made it back, and we found our dino. We didn't get eaten, so that was good. That was very good. And and then we came back and we did one that we don't normally do on a regular basis, Triceratops spin. And there was literally like barely anybody there, maybe like one other person on the ride. So the way they were doing that is like they were just making sure that you kept at least one Triceratops or whatever ride vehicle it is between each person. So between each group. So like we could sit in two. There was a in between point, and then the group continued on from there. So that was just a tip, and everything like that was great to get some breeze. Like there was a lot of breeze coming through there, so it was nice and cool up there. The temperatures were still a little cool, so may have been part of it, but I might use that as a cool down, function later on in the parks. Again, we don't typically go on those because of the low capacity, and I can't guarantee this as things reopen, but they let us go on it again. So we went on it 4 times before we got off, and it's nice views of the park, nice views of kind of Dino Land USA, and when you're up there, so that was neat. One thing I forgot to mention on Dinosaur after the ride, and this was every ride, they had automatic hand sanitizing stations. It's hard to say. One thing is to be patient with those. There's like a little red dot, so that tells you that it's working. But you stick your hand under there, and it does take a moment for it to actually dispense, and it doesn't really make like that. Some of them do a little bit more than others. Depends on like how loud it is in the ride environment, but it doesn't necessarily make that like loud, that classic I'm dispensing soap or hand sanitizer to you type noise. So just kind of got to watch. You could tell like some people were like sticking their hands in there like, oh, it didn't work, and then it come out right after that. So be patient, stick your hand under there, and should be good to go. They did have aloe in it, just which kind of was twofold. So not so good point. It was a little bit like a sticky type hand sanitizer. So if you don't like that, you might want to bring your own. But it have, I think the reason for that was because it had aloe in it. So I think that was good because you won't get all your hands from doing sanitizing multiple times. Won't get, it'll still be soft. I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm trying to describe there, but aloe good. So there you go. All right. And, some of the things that we noticed as well, as we were walking to Dino Land USA and as we were transitioning to other areas of the park, we noticed that some of the shows were not happening. Also, some of the there were no show times listed outside for Nemo or for Festival of the Lion King, and so just to let you know, that was not happening. I don't know if they'll bring those back. I think there was definitely evidence of plans too. So like when we went back to the area where the circle where the Lion King show is and where they normally queue up, there were like out of the regular queue along all the sidewalks, anywhere they could put them, there were social distance markers. So I think they expect to do that, and they expect to have longer lines because of space, making sure that spacing is good between people to make that socially distance. So that is. So again, I think they're coming back, but I don't know when. But they are. There was evidence of them preparing for that. So I figure it can't be too long, but they just weren't open that day. Another thing, and this may have just been the Passholder Preview day thing, is a lot of the snack stands weren't open. Some of them a few of them started to open like more towards the middle of the day, around lunchtime, but still some of them were not, many of them were not open at that time. Starbucks was open, so rest assured, Starbucks is open. Everybody who loves their Disney Starbucks, and I don't know what it is. I agree that Starbucks sometimes is just better at Disney. So we'll move on to the next thing we did, which was the Kilimanjaro Safari. Again, just remember there's no fast passes in all of this that we're doing. So fast passes are out right now, which is kind of nice because you're not dreading like and we'll see how this goes as we go here. But you're not necessarily dreading the standby queue because you don't know that there's not like someone that has priority over you because they have a fast pass. So I thought it was fine for this. Again, we'll see what happens as we go, but again, just no fast pass. Just don't get your expectations up that there will be fast passes anytime soon, because they are using some of those fast pass queues to expand the queue for the standby queue so that they can make sure that everybody's socially distanced accordingly. So some of those are in use for that purpose. Like for instance, when we went on Kilimanjaro safaris, there were areas of the queue that we hadn't seen in a long time or possibly ever, because they were using different parts of the queue that maybe I hadn't seen since like the ride opened when they needed to do it. So they tried, they had social distance markers everywhere, plexiglass in between again. So it was good. On the actual attraction itself, when you get on, they are seating like every row, but there is the best thing I can kind of describe it as is there's like a shield, like a plastic clear shield, so that they had stretched out over in between each of the rows. So it's kind of like if you're at like a restaurant or something like that has outdoor seating, and they put up like a wall, or if you're on like a tour bus and they put down like a normally open air tour bus, but they put down like the plastic shades so that when it's raining, something like that, but in between each row. And again, it kind of blended in with the vehicle. So if this was your first time on the vehicle, you may never know that was not part of the attraction itself to begin with. It did obstruct views a little bit. I mean, you could still see like through the plexiglass, but if you were like taking pictures or videos and things, it was sometimes a little hard to see because of the angle. It's like I could see things on my side, but if I was trying to look on the other side, I had like a little bit more of a tunnel effect in order to take some of those videos. So keep that in mind. I don't know if they're trying to like encourage more animal activity out there. And it was cooler and a little bit earlier in the day, not like super early in the day like they normally recommend, for animal activity. But there were tons of animals out there. Like we saw zebras and giraffes. There were a lot of, if you've been following on Instagram, I think it's Dr. Mark. Sorry if I'm wrong, Dr. Mark. Or he's been posting a lot of things because there were a lot of babies. I don't know if that's the right term. Babies born from different species. So there was like baby zebras. There was baby. Thinking baby elephant. I might be wrong. Might be misstating that. But baby flamingos. Just lots of new life out there. So that was cool. We got a really good show from like the really good show from the lion. So it's like Simba on Pride Rock type situation. Like he was just walking around up on the rock, like he was surveying his territory from, in the Lion King. So that was pretty cool. A lot of animals just really active. There was an ostrich that, jumped in front of us and had, so it kind of led us down the trail. So we had to wait for them, which was, great. And, there were just tons of wildlife there to see, and some unique ones as well. Like the guide was saying that some of the ones that were there were kind of more rare to see out and about, because they don't control all of the animal. I mean, they try to they have certain systems in place and feeding times and things like that to encourage animals to be in certain places, for you to be able to see them, but but they don't have to. So that's so we did see some rarer creatures. One of them was like a spotted dog type creature that they said was more endangered, and that's why they had it here for conservation efforts. That was a cool looking little creature. Warthog in the burrow. Yes, it's just like it was a great experience there. One thing I'll mention about some of the changes too is like the stroller area was a little bit different. Normally it's like in the queue and they take your stroller partway through the queue, but this one they had moved it. So as you're coming up to Kilimanjaro Safaris, there's like a right hand area. So kind of just be observant, and that's where the strollers are. Otherwise, you're going to come up to the entrance. Then they're going to tell you where the stroller place is, and it's a little bit farther to kind of circle back into it. Not far, but if you want to save yourself some time, that is a way to do it. It's just there's not like a sign that points to the stroller area, so you just got to kind of look as you're coming up to Kilimanjaro Safari, and you'll kind of see it off to the right or left, I guess. Well, depending on which direction you're coming. But so that was Kilimanjaro Safari. That was awesome, and they mentioned come back. We'll be here till 6, I think 5, 6. Park was not open as long as I'll mention before I forget to mention that. So it opened it was kind of like old school Animal Kingdom times. So I think it opened at 8 and may have closed at like 5 or 6. So there were no like evening hours there, and that's going to be the case for all the parks for a little while here. So keep that in mind when you're making your reservation, and if you're thinking about going to the park. They will be a little bit more limited hours, so you may not be able to. There'll be potentially less people because of capacity, but you're not going to get like both benefits there, where it's longer times and less capacity and things like that. So, so keep that in mind. And after that, we were heading to lunch. So we headed over to Pandora for that. On the way, I believe that was on the way, we saw where one of the rest areas that they have a few designated. I know, like in Magic Kingdom, the Tomorrowland Terrace is one of those, and for Animal Kingdom, I believe it was like the Pizza Safari. I think it was the Pizza Safari area. So you could sit down there. The tables were socially distanced, so you could just sit down there and take off your mask and take a break. Those are available in case it gets to be a little bit too much with the mask. So just want to let you know those are there. Also, just in Animal Kingdom, it's easy to kind of get away from people and such. And cast members will remind you about the mask, like if they're not over your nose and things like that. But in a nice way. So it was very pleasant anytime they my son got reminded a few times because his mask was slipping down. But it was, in a pleasant way. So you just got to prepare for that. Like, they're going to say that. They've got to say that. So keep that in mind. But anyway, heading over to lunch, we headed over towards Pandora. We went down the boardwalk entrance to it. It was a little warm there, and I mentioned that because as you're coming in, there's social distance markers that I don't believe are for like controlling people into the land, although that was kind of the more populated area of Animal Kingdom for today, especially probably because Flight of Passage and Navi River Journey had a very short wait, so there were more people there. But by standard measures, it was not like crowded at all. Still, it was getting a little bit warmer for the day, but those markers, I believe, were probably for Flight of Passage when more capacity comes in and that they need to regulate distancing. So there were the markers throughout the queues, throughout the but they were preparing for like when there's longer lines there and where to put them within Pandora. So those are there. And so we went to go get our food. You do have to order through the mobile app for Satuli Canteen. Other places that were there, not every place was open. Like Tusker House was closed. I believe Yak and Yeti was open. I believe Tiffin's was open, and the Nomad Lounge, Satuli Canteen was open. That's where we were going, and there were a number. I believe Pizza Safari was not open yet. I can't remember. I don't think it was late enough when we went past Restaurantosaurus to confirm that. But a lot of the kiosks and shops were not open. Don't know if that was just because it was a lower attendance with Passholder Previews, or if they will be open. Some of them open again, later on. So I already mentioned that, but just to mention that again. But Satuli Canteen was open. The little snack stand next to it was open. So I got a green beer from there. And while we were waiting, because when you get there, you have to wait outside until your order is ready. So you kind of, in the mobile app, if you're used to doing mobile order, there's a few differences. You have to pick a time that you're going to show up. And we had pre-ordered our food a while ago and had picked our time. So that was one thing we had to get to, kind of like almost like a fast pass for food or a reservation. But you waited outside until it was ready. You said you were there, so they started preparing it, and then you waited for it to be ready. So while we were waiting, I went and got one of the green beers there. It's a fruity beer. I think those things are super refreshing on a hot day. So it's getting a little bit warmer. So that was what I did. There again had like contactless forms of payment with the pay wave if you wanted to do that, and like a plexiglass shield in between you and the cast member, and and social distancing marks throughout as well. And once our food was ready, we went inside. There was a one-way line into the area where you pick up your food. People aren't like ordering there, so there's not like gathering. So they're trying to keep gathering down by waiting until your food is ready for you to actually go in there. There's specific designations of spots to be, so they seem to be doing pretty good about that. Extra plexiglass between you and the cast members where you're picking up the food. Again, everybody in masks. I'll just mention that again, but everybody in masks or face shields as appropriate. And the the other piece is, and I'm coughing because I've been talking for a while, so all right. And as we go forward there, we get our food, and then you go out, and then that's when you can get seated. So you can't like go into the seating area ahead of time. And there are stations set up for drinks, like fountain drinks and and such. So you don't get to touch those. But you can get, still get refills. They'll give you a new cup each time. There's a cast member that is managing that. So that was interesting, but they'll manage that. They'll get you a new cup each time for contact purposes and making sure that you're not there. The forks, knives, and things like that, and they didn't have silverware like they normally do. And they did have napkins, so you can get your own napkins. Napkins are pulled, so you're not like touching anything. The forks and stuff were kind of cool. I didn't get them at first, so I thought they were just like interestingly shaped, but because they had a little like triangle on the end in between. So you had like the fork, and then there's like a little triangle piece, and then the part where you hold. But the reason for that is they had changed their format of their utensils. So there's like a stand, and then at the bottom there's like one fork, one spoon, one knife sticking out, and you pulled that out. So you're only touching that spoon, and no more of like you don't have to like press the button on the side and it shoots out, and then you stick your hand in there. So all that contact is gone. It's just you pull that out, pull another one out if you need another one, off you go. So I thought that was pretty genius in terms of contactless stuff there. When you're getting seated, you kind of have your own range to get seated. Cast members will help you if you need it in finding a place, for a bigger party. They did have like the round tables that are in Satuli Canteen, the booth type round areas that were reserved for parties of 6 or more. They had various table sizes set up, so there was plenty of seating. You could sit outside too, but we were trying to find it inside. And they had only like every other table, so they had it arranged in a way that you were, fairly far from everybody, when you were sitting there. So, so that was nice. Almost wish it would be like that normally in terms of kind of having your own space to eat and relax. So we took our time eating our food. Really enjoyed it. We had our desserts, and it was nice to. We got like the chicken bowls, the bowls that have like the meat, and pick your grain or sweet potato hash, that, and all the sauces, and those are delicious. We had the 2 dome desserts, so those were good. And you can take your mask off when you're inside the restaurant to eat. So they make sure everybody's social distance so that you can do that. You put it back on if you're going back to get like a drink or utensils and things like that. So you don't take them off unless you're at your seat. So there was no issues with that. There weren't people like trying to skirt the system or anything like that. So it worked out well. We enjoyed ourselves. We did have to get up to go to the bathroom during our meal. So if you go, you'll go out like the exit area. There's an exit only area that goes off to the side that kind of goes towards the bathrooms. So you can exit through there, but you can't come back in that way. You do have to go to the front of the restaurant to get back in, if you have a bathroom break, which many parents will attest to. But then you just come back in, you let them know that your party's already in there, and then they do it. And I'm pretty sure they all had like tablets that were there, so I'm pretty sure they were counting like how many people came in and out, so they could make sure they had the proper capacity and such. So that was our meal. We enjoyed it. Again, we stayed there for a little while and just enjoyed sitting down, without the masks and for a moment, and enjoying our food, getting our phones charged back up because we've been doing a lot of posting. So check that out on Instagram for myself at Dads of Adventure. Did a whole, again, the whole story throughout the day and still have a couple of posts there. And then, but it's in a highlight there that you can check out if it's already off there. And then, DreamsMagicAdventure, check that out too. She was posting Mackenzie. So DreamsMagicAdventure, check her Instagram out as well, because she was posting throughout the day and about the information. So there we go. One thing I'll mention is like fuel rods. This is just a general park tip, not necessarily for reopening, but fuel rods. And I wasn't able to find like a very obvious one in Animal Kingdom, but just for in general, you can exchange those, and I'm, pretty easily. And I didn't actually see any there. So I don't know. Maybe they would have taken them away, but I don't think they would have. But I don't know if necessarily. I'm not super aware of like where they are in Animal Kingdom to begin with, so I don't know for sure. But anyway, you can still, if you have them, you can charge them up. Definitely recommend them whenever we get back to having them if they're not available right now. So, moving on. So then we went to Flight of Passage. We have one child that was not tall enough for Flight of Passage and one that was. So one went, and I went first with the one that did, and there was like little to no line for Flight of Passage. So we went all the way through the queue, which that queue is long, so prepare for that. If you're used to waiting in there and then slowly moving along, that queue is beautiful, and there's a lot of it. So we went through the queue, and again, the main waiting was just getting through the queue, and then we were ready to go. But they had social distancing stuff, plexiglass, all those things. Again, on that, the way that they did the social distancing actually in the ride itself, as you were waiting, they had the lines on the floor. As you went into the chamber where you connect to the avatars, they had that set up a little bit different. So you didn't get on your own individual numbered circle. Instead, they had like 3 circles in there, and it was like one for each party. So they were limiting capacity, just so you're aware of that ride too. When we actually got on the simulators for the experience, they had us keep at least one simulator in between each party. So give you an idea of what that may look like for that attraction. And it's a multi level attraction, like stairs and things. So when you got off, there was hand sanitizer at every level of that station as well. So, and you kind of had to self-police distancing yourself when you were exiting the attraction, but for the most part, people were observing that. Just you had to keep reminding my kids throughout the day, like give people space, look at the lines, things like that. But it really wasn't that bad. They did a really good job with it, like extremely good job with it. So we swapped off while so I took our other child, and my wife went back to Flight of Passage, which is great because you don't get to do that very often, and we were thankful for that. But we went. We were in the gift shop coming out of Flight of Passage, and they don't make you go through the gift shop. There's like a side section, so you don't have to go through the gift shop, but it is socially distanced in there. My son was very intrigued by the lava lamp type lamp. That has the little ball, blue lava in it. That was at the front. He almost, they might need to hire him as a salesperson because he was like so intrigued with that. Like he was just like watching this happen. And, and another family came up and there was somebody like ready to buy it on the spot. They realized they were, probably not able to take it back and without it breaking, so they decided not to. But they were ready to like buy it on the spot. So I may suggest that if Disney, if you're listening, great little sales technique. I want to claim that though if you use it, and I'll just send my son in there to enjoy the lava lamps, and maybe he can get a commission on each one that gets sold during the time he's standing there. I don't know, but anyway. So we did that for quite a while, and then we went over to Navi River Journey. There wasn't a wait there, but again, social distancing is there. We got like their boats are kind of like connected in a way, but we got our own boat. So we weren't like connected. We weren't like right next to people. Again, hand sanitizer was available afterward, and so it's getting a little bit hotter that part of the day. We went through but there's still like a breeze, so that was good. But we went through and just kind of walked through Pandora, headed over to the Everest area, and we'll talk a little bit more about some snacks as well. So my wife went on Everest first. We thought one of my sons was eligible to go on that, but he didn't want to. But so we went ahead and went. And again, they've got additional lines out to prepare for the space that's needed, and saw parts of that queue that I haven't seen in a long time. Again, no fast passes. So she went. Took the boys first. But we had promised them like a snack. So if you are a popcorn family like we are, popcorn bucket refills and things like that, there was only one stand. It was the stand right outside Everest that actually had popcorn, and they had they did refills, but what they did was just give you a fresh popcorn instead. So I don't know if they'll keep that up. I don't know if they'll take that away once that. And it's like a standard, like they still have like the Mary Blair. I don't know if they'll use those up and then do other ones, but like a standard popcorn that's available. So I don't know if they'll keep that up, depending, but that was what they did. They just gave you a popcorn for the refill that you could dump into your own bucket, so that they weren't handling your bucket that you'd already used and things like that. So we got our popcorn, and we wandered around. There were some more Wilderness Explorer stations, so we did those. We went into like the Rivers of Light, and this is something I think I have not mentioned yet. We went into like the Rivers of Light Stadium and just kind of walked around in there. There's there's like 2 tables, so I won't, but where you can social distance from people. I don't know if they're like sanitizing those afterwards, so you might have to police that yourself. But I was just checking my list here of things that we were doing. There's no Rivers of Light right now. I will mention that. No shows pretty much of any type that might potentially have a gathering. What they do have though, and it wasn't necessarily, you could probably see it from that stadium. So if you wanted to hang out there and if you love characters and things like that, or have kids that love characters, they were putting characters on like pontoon boats. So they had one that was, we saw earlier in the day, that was Pocahontas and Miko that were going through. That was cool. And then so like as you're walking around, you can kind of see this from different bridges. You don't have to be in the Rivers of Light Stadium, but they eventually like exit out to the Rivers of Light, arena type area. And There were other ones that we missed. I think there was like a little bit more, like a couple boats together. I saw Goofy, and they were using like a themed, they had like wrapped the boat in like a dino, the Dino Bash theme, and had like a band on there that was playing that didn't necessarily have any characters on it. But they were, I heard from others that they were like Chip and Dale might have been out. I think we missed like the main parade, and I don't think they're going to have like specific show times for that. So it's just kind of as you catch it as you're on the little bridges going through the water, but you can catch it from a few different areas. So that was neat. Way to still bring the characters out there. Definitely social distance, because there's no way you could get anywhere near them when they're out there in the water. But a neat way to do that and create some excitement throughout the park. I believe they were still like there were like some birds still flying. I don't think that show was open, but we didn't go past that area, so I'm not certain of that. But there was still cool things going on throughout. A lot of the like street shows and things like that was not going on. Again, things that gather crowds. They were, I think what they're doing, like with the boats, like people would like line up a little bit along the bridges when they were coming through, but it was like quick, so there wasn't like a lot of time for a crowd to gather. So I think they're staying away from those type things right now. And trying to make sure I don't miss anything here. Library Journey. Oh, there were some PhotoPass folks out. So I can, not as many as like would normally be, but there are PhotoPass people out there. So that is available in some spots. There was one like, by the mountains in Pandora. And I didn't get a determination on this, and don't, yell at me if I'm wrong, but I think you could have taken your mask off briefly to take a picture, but most people were not, and we did not. And I didn't even think about it until like after we had taken the picture. I'm like, oh yeah, I have my mask on. But we'll have that picture to remember. Remember things, how they were. But PhotoPass was still there. Again, I didn't see quite as many, but again, it might have just been for the Passholder Preview portion. As the excuse me. We also went to one of the last things we did was go through the Maharaja Jungle Trek. We did pretty much every attraction, and we'll get to that, but except for the wilderness train out to Rafiki's Planet Watch. That was available. It was only open till 4, which I think is kind of normal for that. Again, it's kind of like old school Animal Kingdom. Like you had that limited time because the park closed at a fairly early hour in the evening. So keep track of that, because certain things will close earlier than others. So you may not be able to max it out to like the end of the day. So that closed at 4, I believe. Anyway, Maharaja Jungle Trek. That one was not. There wasn't like there weren't like a ton of lines and things. There were just a lot of signage that kept reminding you to social distance yourselves and keep your mask on. If you have to sneeze or whatever, make sure to cover your nose and mouth, which your nose and mouth are already covered. But with the masks, the little guides that show you kind of what the birds and animals are were not there, because you're carrying those back and forth, so they did not have those. One of the things I mentioned on Flight of Passage, they did still have the 3D glasses, but I think they normally sanitize those anyway after every group of people comes through, so that's still where it would be normally. The Maharaja Jungle Trek. There were still like guides out there to show you things, but people did a good job of like not crowding around. There were the Wilderness Explorer badges were still available there as well. The lion didn't want to come out. You could just see their stripes in the far distance between two trees, um, but the but most areas were still like open. Um, for like the bat area and the bird area, you still had to, um, those were some of the few doors that you actually had to open yourself. I don't know if they'll have people there stationed there when more people are there to open them for them or not. But like in the shops, like you didn't have to open doors for a good part of it because the cast members were there. So I think that was pretty much it for the Maharaja Jungle Trek. It's just cool, check it out. There's a big old Komodo dragon that we saw among other animals that were there. If you haven't been on those, those are nice. We also walked along the Discovery Island Trail, which is kind of like where it's tough to be a bug is. Like you pass by like the entrance to the theater where people queue up for that. Oh, we didn't go on that. I guess didn't go on that, but you can get like right up next to the Tree of Life. That wasn't always open. That was not like a now thing, but like a you know end of last year type opening. It wasn't open for a little while. It is now, so that's kind of a neat area. And one of the things that we found when we were down there is one of the Wilderness Explorer badges. And they had like a little section of the path, and it was like one family at a time. So you really got some special attention there. And the person was like, let me show you something. Let me show you, you want to learn about some insects, and let me show you a friend that I have here. So my sons were like excited. We went down a little path, and like she talked about things. So she was at the top of the path, and then went down to like the station, Wilderness Explorer station, and they and she had like a live scorpion in a little box, which they said they keep regulated temperature wise. So they were really fascinated by that, and they so that was kind of a neat, like, if you want to have kind of like a character experience or something that is special, and where you get specific attention, that was a neat thing to do. Like the other ones are open, like you had to just kind of spread people out. That one was like a one at a time type thing. So that was neat. Neat way to end out the day there. So that was getting towards the end of the day. The last thing we did was the Cali River Rapids. So I hadn't done this in a while, but I was like, okay, while we're here, it's a hot day. We're leaving the park. Typically, I don't do water rides unless we're leaving the park in case get too wet. But it was interesting. So I don't think I've been on this for a very long time, if at all. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to go on it. My sons heard water ride and they wanted to go on it, of course. So the way they were social distancing there is like they had like two groups on the boat and across from each other. So it's like the three of us on one side, and then there were like there's a couple on the other side. So I don't know, exactly how they're going to continue to do that, but it, won't be, it is. That's how they were doing it at the time. I was a little confused as I went through, and I found out later why. But it seemed very very tame, and I was like, I don't remember. Like, if I went on this, I don't remember it being this tame. You still go down the I won't. Well, I won't mention that, but um, it was just kind of like going along, like a river, and there's a little bit rapids part. But what I heard later was that some of the water features were turned off. I guess potentially for everything going on right now. Um, but it's a nice, relaxing ride. I just wasn't exactly what I expected, so that's probably why. But yeah, so that is available, and yeah, so that was how we ended out our day. We did that, and then we had to head out from there. Um, and it wasn't like the end of the day, but we had to be somewhere. So um, we exited around, it's probably about 4 something, 5 o'clock, and we had done everything we wanted to. It was getting a little hot, so we were ready to go. Um, anyway, so yeah, the park closing early didn't really affect us in that way. So that was where we headed out from there. Cast members heading out were very nice and kind, um, and everything as well. Um, one of the other things I wanted to mention that may sometimes be a challenge for folks with kids is height checks. I'm not sure if they're like sanitizing the height check markers regularly. I think they were trying to encourage kids to stand in front of them instead of under them, where they would like touch their heads to them. But that may be a touch point you may need to address with your kids ahead of time if you want to, because they were still doing height checks. My kids are so used to like standing under them, they just immediately did that, and I didn't even think about that as a thing. If you were trying to manage touch points, one other touch point, we talked about this with our kids, that you don't touch any of the rails and things like that as you're going through, and they did pretty good. Like as they were going through the line, they would like touch one of the poles or something like that. But we washed our hands and then it was fine. But for the most part, just preparation, I think, is key in all of that. And that was pretty much it. Again, there were no trams in the parking lot, so keep that in mind, that there's not that form of transportation there. The parking lot was hot, so just from a standpoint of preparing for that, like, if you have a remote start car, use it. I'm thinking about that heavily as the temperatures go up here. But we've got because by the time I got out there, like my legs were feeling the parking lot from beneath. It got pretty hot that by the end of the day, but got in there, and then we headed out. So drove on out, headed past the big Mickey electrical tower, and we were off and heading back home. So again, just to recap, like, great experience. I think the cast members are doing everything they can to make it a great experience for you. So keep that in mind and encourage them to, because that can only create a more positive experience for everybody. As there get to be more people, people are going to have more questions, have more confusion, some frustrations. One of the things that was really cool about just like humanity in general at the park was that everybody was fairly like pretty understanding, not just the cast members, but like the people. And I think that's a product of like, we've just had to be, because of everything going on. You've just had to be more understanding, had to be give more grace, and in these situations. So so that was apparent throughout, and I hope that stays that way. Sometimes I feel like some of the challenges that are in the parks are because people feel entitled in some ways and things like that. And I'm not. I'm speaking for myself when I say that sometimes, like frustrations, because you're like you have an expectation of what people things should be doing, how they should work, and all that stuff, and you just got to be patient and have grace for things that may work a little bit differently. And I think people have learned that, and I hope that stays around as we continue, even when things go back to normal, whenever that is. But that was definitely apparent overall as just a general sense in the park. So that was cool to see just overall. And I think that was about it. So if you're going to the parks again, things may be closed, restaurants may be closed, character experiences are not going on right now, except for a couple like Garden Grill and Topolino's Terrace over at the Riviera. Things are constantly changing, so I might say something here and it might be different tomorrow. So I won't go into full details on things that are going on right now. But just keep in mind, some of those snack carts that you would be counting on are not potentially going to be open. And popcorn bucket refills or may be limited. So that there was only that one popcorn stand in Animal Kingdom that was open. The Mickey bar stands, those were limited in terms of what was open. I'm trying to think if there was one open throughout, but some of the hours, for the quick service, seemed to be later, but might have been because we were in the park earlier. I don't know. But definitely some of those kiosks and stands and things like that that had snacks and such were either not open or not open till later in the day. There's the slushy stand that was not open at all. Just things like that. And, that may change quickly. I don't know. But just things to keep in mind so that you again, can prepare for what's there. Make sure you have the app. Make sure you're looking at all the changes in the app that make announcements through the app. Order your food, mobile order before you get there. So you're not waiting outside the restaurant trying to order it and then set it up. I don't know if they have limited capacity for different times, but we ordered ours I think the on the way or possibly the day before. I don't know if that may not be true, but anyway, just order it as soon as you can. Make sure you know the procedures. Be flexible if the procedures are not what you expect them to be. And I think they are doing the best possible things that they can do to help make the experience as great as it can be. And we had a wonderful time at Animal Kingdom, no doubt. Was it different? Yes. Was it not the same experience that we normally have? Yes. Did we go past the place where you can see Safari Mickey and be like, oh, I missed that a little bit? Yes. Did we miss the air conditioning that you can have while you're waiting for those? Yes. But there's do we wish we could have eaten at Tusker House? Yes. But for the most part, again, you got to go in with the right attitude, not thinking that, okay, if you think that everything's open and you think that everything's going to be exactly the same and everything's going to be how you want it to be, you're going to be you're potentially setting yourself up for disappointment. So just be prepared to adjust. Be prepared to just kind of relax a little bit and not be trying to get things done that do you want to get done, and just go with the flow of what's going on, and that I think will lead to the best experience possible. So we'll end it there, and if you're going to the parks today or as they reopen here, again, as we're recording this, Magic Kingdom and Epcot are probably Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom are reopening to guests, and Epcot and Hollywood Studios are soon to follow next week. So, coming soon, and we'll get more We'll try to keep more updates as we go. But for now, again, come find us at Dads of Adventure on dadsofadventure.com. Check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and like us all in all those places. And again, the Instagram, if you want to check out kind of what our day looked like, and I put notes on there on every picture, what things were as we went through our day. So check that out in my Instagram feed under the highlights, and we'll continue to post things there. I forgot to mention, I got some nice comments on my Mandrill shirt here at Animal Kingdom, so I put it back on for this. But so that was cool. So enjoy yourself, have fun, find ways to have fun like that. Yeah, and people were having fun with the shirts. I'll say that. And so again, find us at Dads of Adventure on those places. And also, if you're listening to this podcast, there's video formats on DreamsMagicAdventure, and that's where we'll probably post some videos and pictures and things like that too, as we get more information on other park openings. We'll be back there to some of the other parks over the next few weeks, so probably more information coming from that as we go here. And I'll just say, coming in July, there is a special episode that I recorded with on Instagram at Will Talks Disney, and we had a great discussion on just Disney at Christmas time. So if you're wanting to kind of relive those moments and things like that, we covered a lot of stuff, and it's so check that out. Plan some time to listen in or to watch it. We'll get that together and have that out in July for a little Christmas in July from Disney. So stay tuned for that. And come to dadsofadventure.com to join the membership. Again, you get to talk to positive Disney dads in the language of Disney, and all about our adventures in life and our adventures at Disney. We'll be adding things as we go here to that, and also get the information. You'll be able to get information there on how to have positive experiences. Again, little things like having your if you're a pass holder, having your pass holder card and license out and ready before you start driving to Disney. Little things like that can make the difference in your day and it being a positive day. So, and here at Dads of Adventure, we're all about helping dads have positive life and Disney adventures with their family. So that's about it. Join the newsletter there as well. And I will end this by saying, go have an adventure with your family.